Theologians, for most of the history of Christian theology, have used two terms in relation to one another, grace and nature. And with me today is Dr. Conor Cunningham, who's going to try and talk about these two concepts in theology and how they relate to one another and why the study of them is important. Conor, you're very welcome.
Thanks very much.
Okay, grace and nature, nature and grace, they have been the bugbear for particularly Latin-based theology since the 4th century.
Absolutely. I actually would argue that grace and nature is the only debate humans ever have.
Okay,
I think it's the basis of metaphysics. I think it's the basis of philosophy. I think it's the basis of culture. I think it's the basis of biology. I think it's the basis of everything. In fact, I don't think there's I think football is based on. I don't think there's a single subject that doesn't involve the division of grace and nature. Now, what we have is a strange thing where we tend to think of supernatural or grace, something from God, being all lovely and I mean, if you think of a holy person, how do you characterize them? Do they have broad thighs, or are they wispy? Wispy, yeah? That's supernatural. Angels, flapping wings. Nature, rhinoceros, yeah?
Mud,
bowel movements, yeah? That's what we think. And then the religious imagination tends to think, now let's just hope that mud, that corpse, can be resurrected into something spiritual, can become something supernatural, can have grace that will elevate it. We tend to think of a division, almost like, I suppose the debate it's almost a sense of where they're like oil and water, immiscible. They're a dualism, two things. Whilst the fathers of the church and many of the doctors, and especially, as you said, you mentioned, the East don't seem to have this problem, this division. They kept the two very much together. They were mutually informing, mutually fulfilling. And then we had a strange division after Aquinas with neo-scholasticism, where there was nature, that was creation, and then there was a second gift, and that was salvation. Yeah? But that meant one was extrinsic, outside the other. But that causes so many difficulties. Because of the grace and nature, what's the and? From where does that come? The and. The and. Is that natural? Or is that grace? The and, between grace and nature. And the fathers and doctors, many of the doctors, as I said, thought that grace was the reason for nature, hence creation, and its fulfillment. As Aquinas said, grace does not destroy nature, but perfects it. It makes you more of a giraffe. Yeah? In fact, without grace, you don't have any giraffes. So in a sense that this is the thing where physicality and spirituality are not opposed, but are actually involved in the same erotic, if you like, desire economy. Because creation itself is an act of desire. God's eros, God's love, creates difference. And then God sends his Son into it to perfect it, not to destroy it, not to subsume it, not to moralize it, not to spiritualize it, but to make it more physical. Why is it, if you think about it, because we do think of a heaven and an earth, but why is it that the book of Revelation says it's a new heaven and a new earth? The earth isn't dispensed with. It's a new heaven and a new earth. And also people don't realize that if you look at Genesis, which is probably one of the greatest metaphysical texts of all time, and John's Gospel picks it up very, very deliberately, we think of angels, and I bet you anyone watching and anyone here filming, you think of an angel as not a creature, but they're creatures. They just have a different nature. than us, a different nature than giraffes. They were also created. They are also Michael the Archangel, Gabriel, all these angels we know about, they were just like giraffes. They were created. So our notion of grace and nature has to be corrected. And the important point is, if religion gives in to the myth of the spiritual and the material, and that means that most Christians, indeed religious people of the Abrahamic faiths, are actually anonymous atheists. They believe like atheists do. So they say supernatural is something extra special. And the atheist goes, you're bang on. It's something extra special. Extra to the point that we can do without it.
So, well, we both know that one of the sort of terribly important images for the 20th century is the Frankenstein image. There's just the corpse, and then the electricity comes and makes it, and it sort of, stands up. And I have the feeling that, like, I listen to preachers on Sunday mornings. I listen to religious people. When I hear the word grace, I always feel they're thinking of grace a bit like the electricity.
An aspirin.
Yeah, and it's sort of zapped into that. There's this corpse, and then this sort of zaps you in.
Yeah.
Or another image that I hear, people talking about body and soul, as if you could, I lost my wallet, I lost my soul.
Yeah.
And the soul is the spiritual bit.
Absolutely. It's absolutely nonsense. The soul is a possibility of the body. Wittgenstein, Ludwig Wittgenstein, the famous philosopher, once said, people don't have a soul, they are a soul. They are a soul. You don't have a body without a soul. It's not the soul in the body, rather, it's actually the body in the soul, which you might also call form. A shape, a form, like a verb. It's a verb, it's an act, rather than something extrinsic, something you can...
Aristotle's suke.
Well, absolutely. And this is the important point. I mean, it's simply, again, you don't have a body without a soul. A soul is not something in here like penicillin or an organ transplant or something there, and when you die it flutters off. To even actually, Aquinas is brilliant on this, and he followed Aristotle, obviously. He argued that there's no such thing as a corpse. Yeah?
Yeah, this is the crucial thing for the Frankenstein image.
Yeah, there's no such thing as a corpse, because you look at some dead body. For Aquinas, it was simply resembled like a painting, that person who's dead. It's just material arranged in a certain way, bearing a certain resemblance. Yeah? There's no body anymore, because there's no soul. It isn't that the soul has fled, but the possibility of the body has gone. The very possibility. And even for Aristotle and Aquinas, again following him, back to our giraffe, a giraffe has a soul in some sense. That's why we call it a giraffe rather than a porcupine or a mushroom. It has a certain form, a certain essence, it's a certain kind. And that's why, and people think, oh no, that's all nonsense, that's just medieval, crap. But the point is, why is it that we cut the grass but don't cut the dog? Why is it that we eat a carrot or chicken but don't eat our neighbour's children? Yeah? And if we do, we call the cops. But why do we call the cops and we stick them in jail? And we say they've committed a crime. But you can't have that actually happen unless there's a soul. It isn't you have a soul, you are a soul.
Conor, nature and grace has made Christians fight one another. It has confused Christians for trying to make us look at it in a new way and realise that neither grace nor nature can ever be separated from one another. Thank you.